Good morning, YouTube. SJ Squirrel here. So today I thought I would do the first in a series of videos on rider skills. How to ride your bike well, how to stay out of trouble, some things that help with more proficient riding. Here's the preface. I'm not Keith Code. I'm not a racer. I've only taken a couple classes. I've only got about a dozen years on the bike and about 100,000 miles. So take what I say with however much salt you think you need to. So what I want to talk about today specifically is use of the rear brake. And what I'm going to say on the topic might be a little controversial. Some of you might think I'm crazy. Some of you might completely disagree with me. And some of you might understand exactly what I'm saying. So here goes. I don't think you should use the rear brake. That's it. That's my statement. I don't think you should use the rear brake. Now there's two caveats to that. I think if you're coming to a stoplight or stop sign, or just in general planning to stop the bike, then go ahead and use the rear brake in addition to the front brake. And if you're in a panic stop situation in a straight line, go ahead and use the rear brake as well as the front brake. Get your maximum braking. If you're in the twisties, if you're riding around town, if the bike is leaned over at all, I think that you should not touch the rear brake. I think that using the rear brake causes more harm than good, and that should just be avoided. So here's the why. The most powerful control on your motorcycle, the control that makes the greatest change to the velocity and or direction of the bike, is the front brake. It will overpower your throttle, and it will haul that bike down to a stop. So the front brake is your most powerful control. Here's why. You know, there's a reason there's two discs up there on most modern bikes. When you brake, weight shifts forward. When weight shifts forward, that compresses the contact patch on the front tire and puts more pressure on that front tire. The more you do that, the more it flattens, the bigger it gets. So the more you brake, up until the point where you lose traction, up until the point where you overload that tire, you continue to get more braking ability the more you brake. That's a good thing. What else happens when all the weight shifts forward? That's right, it comes off of the back tire. So the more you brake, the less effective the rear tire is at holding the road. And since the rear brake slows the rear tire, the less effective the rear brake becomes. It's estimated that 90 to 100% of your braking is done with the front brake. Not like that's how much people use it. It's like that's the capability of the machine. 90 to 100% of the braking force is done at the front wheel, on the front brake. Okay, fine. 90% is at the front. What about the 10 at the back? Well, like I said, if you're in a panic stop situation or something like that, go ahead and use it. But here's why I think you shouldn't use the rear brake in the twisties or around town, or really most of the time. When you move the weight forward, when you're taking the weight off the rear tire, you're lightening the rear. You make it very, very easy to lock the rear tire with the brakes. The more you brake on the front, you know, you've got all that weight there, it's going to keep the front tire spinning. It's less likely to lock. The rear tire, when it starts getting light, it doesn't have much friction with the road to keep it spinning. So it's very easy to lock the rear tire. If you lock the rear tire, you better be in a straight line. If you're not in a straight line, the bike is going to get sideways. This is recoverable, but you basically have to ride the bike out to a stop. If you lock the rear brake, with any side force and the rear end swings out, you must not release the brake lever, or the pedal, I should say. If you do, the bike's going to snap back straight as soon as the tire has traction again, and it's going to high side your dumb ass out onto the pavement. I've seen it a number of times. Guys I ride with, other people. I was doing a ride with one of the clubs out in the Sacramento area. One of their members was on this big old Harley, and they were going really slow. We came around this corner at like 16 miles an hour. That's 1.6. And he wasn't using any front brake. He was just using a rear brake. He locked the rear tire. It slid. He panicked to let go of it. It snapped back and it dumped the bike on its side with him underneath it. Even at very low speeds, you can high side the bike. Now, the front brake. If you lock up the front brake and you start skidding the front tire, you just let go of the brake and it rights itself. Really, it's that easy. And because the front brake is the one that has all the weight on it, it's also the one that gives you the most feedback, so you can feel what's going on. And I've tried to stress this with new riders. I try to stress this with old riders who think they know better. You know, the argument's always, well, I want to use all the brakes I got. Well, that's all fine and good in a straight line. And, you know, if you're the best rider in the world, maybe you can use that tiny little bit of rear brake without locking it. But if you don't need all of the brakes, you know, if you're not in a panic situation, if you're just trying to slow down for a corner, the risk of locking the rear brake is not outweighed by the benefit of that extra 10 to 0% braking force. Some of you are wondering, how could it be 0%? Ever see a stoppie? You can use a rear brake all you want, but if the rear wheel's off the ground, it's not going to slow you down. And I've seen 900-pound Harley baggers pull the rear tire off the ground under hard braking. So what do you guys think? What does the YouTube community feel about my little dissertation on brake forces? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Have I missed something vital? I don't know, YouTube. Tell me what you think. Squirrel out.